to their screams.
Greetings, ghouls and creeps, and welcome to Listen to Their Screams, a horror podcast. I am one of your hosts, Dave. I'm joined, as always, by the other host, Ike. Ike, how are you?
I'm doing pretty fantastic.
Yeah, well, me too. Thank you all for joining us and listening. We do appreciate that. And whatever platform you listen to, make sure you subscribe to us. And if the option is there, give us a rating and a review. And then make sure you share the episodes. Tell all your friends about those two hip cats talking about horror movies on Listen to Their Screams. Well, one hip cat and Ike. I don't know what to say. But
Damn.
and also, while you're out there floating around on the internet, make sure you follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. All you have to do is look up Listen to Screams. That is listen, the number 2 in Screams, and you will find us. Before we dive into everything today, thank you to our wives, Monica and Kayla, for putting up with us, for supporting us, for helping us, for the research and ideals, and et cetera, et cetera. It's very important to have a good, solid network and support people around you, and they certainly are that. And we will mention it again later, but we will issue right at the top a spoiler warning. We do talk movies in this podcast, so there is a very good chance in the course of our discussion that we will spoil something. So you have been warned. So, Ike, how's your week been? Did you do anything fun? Watch anything? What you been up to?
Oh man, not a whole lot. Haven't done anything fun per se. Been working a lot. In terms of watching stuff, I know I mentioned it a lot, but I actually finished Criminal Minds, finished all 15 seasons. So that was an undertaking. Let's see. Trying to think, is there's anything else that I've watched? Honestly, I've been watching a lot of Christmas movies, so I've directed a lot of my attention away from the horror genre in lieu of some Christmas related movies. So not a whole lot from me this week.
Yeah, me neither. I've been ultra busy too. It's the end of the year. It's always kind of a busy time at my job. Finishing things up, wrapping things up. You get that end of the year, everybody going, "Oh shit, we need to do this because we forgot or been putting it off," and I hate that. I do have some time off coming up, so hopefully I'll get to watch a little more. And I also have been watching mostly Christmas stuff. This time of year I watch a lot of Christmas. I watch a lot of Christmas movies, but I watch a lot of Christmas specials, particularly like cartoon specials from particularly like the 80s and early 90s. I love watching those. So I've been watching a lot of that. I did watch. I think we mentioned it last week. I did watch Red Christmas with Dee Wallace, and that was a pretty decent movie. But I haven't been into diving into the Christmas horror as much this week as I have in the past. Outside of Red Christmas, and then one of our movies that we watched for today, which I guess we should mention, right? We watched. What did we watch? Christmas, Bloody Christmas. We watched that to review, and we watched Skinamarink, which is not due out for a while, but we got a screener clip. I assume you watched them both, right, Ike?
I sure did.
All right. I would say you didn't tell me you didn't. Typically, you give me a heads up if if anything. But yeah. So that's kind of what I did too. I've been so busy; it's just been hard to watch much of anything. I usually have stuff on in the background during the day while I'm working, but man, I've been so swamped. It's like I really just forget to even turn it on. So it's affecting me. People need to get their crap done and get past this. It'll get better because in the next couple of weeks, there'll be a ton of people off, so it'll quiet down, and I can have my background horror on.
That's right.
But I do have a lot more Christmas movies I still got to watch though. I have my staples that I watch every year, and I've not gotten through all those yet. I still haven't watched the new Christmas Story Christmas. Have you watched that yet?
I actually haven't. I need to.
Yeah, me too.
My wife has never seen A Christmas Story, so I need her to get her to watch
Oh,
that, and then we can watch
that's a
that one.
classic.
It is.
Yeah, typically we always watch Christmas Story on Christmas Day, but I kind of the way my brain's wired, with this being a sequel, it's like, oh, I want to watch the first one and then the second one, kind of watch them back to back.
Right.
So it's like we may have to come off that watching it Christmas Day, or just watch them both on Christmas Day, I guess. But then I have a few other things that I like to watch. I watched I think yesterday I watched Jingle All the Way. That's one of my staples. I see people knock that movie so much, but I love that movie so very much. It is such a fun movie to watch.
You can't beat Arnold Schwarzenegger in comedy. He's
It's not.
just, it's so bad, it's good.
And I'm telling you, I worked retail in the late 80s, early 90s, and I've experienced those things firsthand. This mad rush for the hot toy. When I worked there, the big hot toy that was like that were the original Power Rangers figures, and it was so berserk. We had to keep them like behind the jewelry counter and give out numbers, and and it was crazy. And people, of course, would get the certain colors, and it would come down, and you'd only have like one color left, and everybody would be all mad because it's not the one their kid wanted, and it was a madhouse. It was so nuts. So I relate. I get that that whole that trauma of the Christmas shopping season. People should have listened to Linus Van Pelt and Peanuts. That's just commercialism is just not the reason for the season. So
Amen to that.
I don't know if I agree with all of what Linus said, but he has his heart in the right place. But you know what, Ike? You know what's just more fun than shopping for the hot Christmas toy is playing our game here on Listen to the Screams. Let's play Top 3.
Top 3.
All right, this episode on Top 3, we are going to do our top 3 favorite creepy kid characters in horror movies. Ike, I'm going to say right up front, this has been the hardest one we've done yet for me. And not because I thought the 80s slasher, when we did that, was very hard for me because there were so many choices, so many to choose from. This one was just hard because it's like not as many popped to mind with me. It was I had to really sit down and kind of dig into it a little more. I came up with some, but I don't know. It's like they didn't jump to mind like most of them do. But I think I've got some good ones here. So let's dive into it. And I'm definitely afraid this week we're going to have overlap, but we'll see.
Perhaps.
We don't usually have like any overlap really. I don't know if we've ever had an overlap yet. And I got a feeling. I think this is the week. But we'll see. This might be a short, quick top 3. We'll see here. So top 3 creepy or scary kid characters in horror movies. Ike, why don't you start? What do you have at number 3?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Small preface for this. I actually had my number 1 and 2 automatically off the bat. My number 3 was the one that I couldn't find, but I thought about it and I found Gage Creed from Pet Sematary. Gage is the little kid that died. He got hit by the truck. They put him in the Pet Cemetery. He came back to life. And there's a specific scene in the first Pet Sematary movie where he has the doctor's scalpel and he just cuts the guy's Achilles tendon. It is gruesome. It is brutal. And that to me is like my just very key memory from that movie. And Gage is creepy. He's pale. He's sick-like. And it's just spooky. Super spooky.
Absolutely. I have talked in probably over the top about how a couple particular 80s Stephen King movies I really like. Christine and Pet Sematary. And so it's no surprise. Here we do. We have our first overlap. Gage Creed was my number 2. He was my number 2. I love Pet Sematary. I love that kid. So when we get to that, we'll name drop, but we're not going to go into it again because I just second everything you just said. He was so creepy. The little guy the actor did such a good job in that role. But my number 3 was from The Shining, 1980. It's the Grady twins. That movie, I love that movie. I've talked about it. I believe when we did our top favorite Stephen King movies, The Shining I had at number 1. And a big reason for that is the Grady twins. They creep me out. Children are creepy, but twin children are even creepier. No offense if you're a twin out there. That's just the way it is. I'm sorry you have to deal with that. That's the weight you have to bear. It is and then when you get to the point where it's like it kind of shows their ending and their demise or what happened to them, it's just even holding another level of creepy. So my number 3 is the Grady twins from The Shining, 1980. So Ike, what's your number 2?
Absolutely. I will say the Grady twins were very, very close second to number 3. But my number 2 is Jamie Lloyd from the Halloween franchise from Halloween 4 and on. I love Jamie Lloyd's character. In my opinion, Halloween went wrong in so many ways, but Jamie Lloyd was not one of the ways it went wrong. I love the actress who plays her. I would love to see like them do like a reboot of like the Jamie Lloyd trilogy or whatever, and make her into like a serial killer. How they ended Halloween 4 with her like stabbing her sister, I really wish they would have built on that more, because Jamie Lloyd in that clown mask, like the one that Michael had, was so creepy, and I love her. So that would be my number 2.
Yeah, that Jamie Lloyd was actually I had her at number 3 in mine for when I first jotted down just right at the top of my head my ideals, and then I bumped her when I remembered the Grady twins. They for some reason I forgot them, but yes, I agree. A very strong character. I like the homages and the throwbacks to Michael. I mean, it's so great when she's out trying to pick her costume and stuff, and she picks that. You're like, oh, it's just so cool. So great. So again, my number 2 then, like we said, was Gage Creed, Pet Sematary. Already talked about him. We're not going to dive into that again. So I guess right back to you. What's your number 1 creepiest kid in a horror movie?
I almost think that we maybe chose the same number 1. I'm not super sure, but I had to choose Isaac from Children of the Corn. I mean, the guy's name's Isaac. I mean, how do you
Yes.
not find a little bit of creepiness in that, first and foremost? But second of all, it's weird because he's leading this cult, and like his character, it's super weird. And then like there's that part at the end where he like dies but then comes back to life like as a weird zombie thing. Like it's super creepy. I think he's a great character, and we share a name, so I had to have him as my number 1.
Yeah. Well, he is not my number 1,
Oh,
but
okay.
he was one of those. He was one of the guys that immediately popped to mind, and when he did, I thought, "Yep, this is probably my number 1." And then, as I started thinking through things, I thought, "Oh yeah, what about Gage? And what about the Grady twins?" And then my number 1 popped to mind. That just bumped him down. I would put him literally. You could throw him in that top 3 anywhere, and I wouldn't really argue. It wouldn't argue. The whole premise, number 1, when you get like a cult like figure like that, anyway, that's creepy enough.
Right.
That whole concept is creepy. The concept of people, I mean, literally controlling other people, uh, and by whatever means, right? Whether it be isolation, or whether it be just whatever, playing off their fears or their weaknesses, or just being super, persuasive and having that, a lot of personality. That creeps me out because that is life. There
Yep.
are people who are positions of power, who are in positions of wealth, or whatever you want to call it, who purely got there not based on ability or anything else per se, but just on personality and their ability to manipulate people and control people. And then when you double down on that and make it a kid, oh my gosh, that just makes it all the worse. So yeah, that I actually have Isaac written down here as an honorable mention. Was going to bring that up, but my number 1 favorite creepiest kid in the movie is Damien Thorne from The Omen in 1976.
Oh yeah.
Um, I have not watched this movie in so long, and it just didn't even dawn on me until I was just looking through some stuff and I saw him and I was like, oh yeah, there we go, because I remember how much this kid wigged me out. That whole birthday party scene in that movie, oh, whew, that's something else. But it just the thought of it, this child being the Antichrist and everything else is just puts a chill up my spine. And the kid did such a great job in the role, acted it so well. Again, it's that thing when, man, we always say it. We say this thing about cute is creepy, and there's sometimes when you have a kid or whatever else that just, if it smiles the right way, it's like, ooh, what's going on in that head? And the kid that played Damien Thorne had that down. So I don't think you can go wrong with Damien or Isaac as the number 1s there. I think those are both pretty good choices, pretty iconic choices. I think a lot of people would agree with that. But I think overall we had a pretty good list. And again, I apologize to the twins out there who, I don't mean to besmirch you or whatever I'm trying to say, but man, twins, there's something. Whew. I had twins in high school that were very, very good friends of mine, and I played in a band with them and everything. And when they went through the period where they actually had the exact same hairstyle and everything else, they were very hard to tell apart. Yeah, they played on that, man. They would prank people and do stuff, and I don't think I blame them for instilling those fears of twins in me. So, oh yeah, but that wraps up the top 3, and let's take a little break. When we come back, we'll talk about our news. Listen to Their Screams is now a Fangoria collaborator. Get 20% off your order at shop.fangoria.com by using the promo code LISTEN2SCREAMS at checkout. That is listen, the number 2, and screams. or you can click the link in the show notes. All right, we got a few news topics to talk about and some upcoming and new releases that are coming out. Ike, have you seen? I'm sure you have. They have just announced, I think they just announced it yesterday, that the next Scream movie is officially going to be titled Scream 6. And they put a teaser trailer out today, the day we were recording this on December 14th. It's about a minute long. Did you have a chance to watch this, Ike?
I definitely did.
Man, it was great. I loved it. It was creepy as hell. I'm telling you what, subways and horror are great together. And but that whole thing, I mean, it was just, again, a minute long. Didn't really give a whole lot away of the plot per se of the movie, but it was creepy. Just when there was, you saw, apparently it looks like it, I'm assuming, must be taking place somewhere in the vicinity of Halloween.
Yeah.
I get that vibe because there was, I mean, I know New York could get wacky, but there was plenty of people in different costumes on this thing. But there was like, what would you say, 3, 4, 5 different ghost faces in that one scene, right?
Yeah, that was what I was gonna say. There were a bunch of people dressed in Ghostface, and like I'm thinking to myself, right? I'm watching this trailer, right? And I don't mean to interrupt you or cut you
No,
off,
that's good.
but I'm sitting here watching this trailer, right? And I'm seeing this, and immediately in my head, I'm thinking, okay, they've done it before. Are they gonna go the multiple Ghostface route, right?
That's exactly what I thought too.
So I wouldn't hate it if they did that, because obviously that's an incredible homage to essentially the entirety of the franchise. I don't think that they did it in the last movie. It was just the one girl, wasn't it? The Scream 5. I don't think she had a
Um,
partner, did she?
Not that I don't recall there being a partner. No.
Right. But I was gonna say they've pretty much done that. I mean, they did that in Scream 1, they did it in Scream 2. They didn't do it in Scream 3, but they did it in Scream 4, and then they didn't do it in Scream 5. So it's a pretty
Yep.
commonly played upon trope in the series. I really hope that, I think we've talked about it before. I really hope that they bring Nev Campbell back, like as kind of like a sleeper type thing, where like maybe she wasn't there publicly, right? They did this whole like thing where like, oh yeah, she's not gonna be in the movie, but then like secretly she's gonna be. Um, Either her or Matthew Lillard. I think that would be great, but I don't
Or
know.
both. Just bring them
Or
all
both.
back.
That's right.
Well, there is the very strong rumor that Kirby's coming back. How do you say her name? Hayden Panettiere, or however you say her name?
Panettiere.
Uh,
Yeah, I think
Panettiere, yeah, yeah.
and
There's
there's a picture of the trailer,
yeah,
like a picture of the set, right? And she's on it.
yeah. Well, that's the rumor. That it's supposedly leaked. And, I mean, you never know, right? You never
Right.
know with people and what they can do. But yes, it shows her there. So that's the thing. I will say this. Let me say this. that picture did slip out there, right? I put it out there on some of our social medias, right? Saying, hey, this is a rumored leak, blah, 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 right? Didn't think anything of it. I believe, I don't remember which platform it was on, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. That's the ones I would have shared it on. We actually got struck as this post has been removed because of so-and-so, I think, what is it, Universal, or who owns the
Yeah.
rights? Is it was removed. It said it was removed because of them,
Oh,
or whatever else. So that tells me that it was truly a leak, and they were out there tracking down all they could find of this, and reporting it to try to get as much of it cleaned up as they could possibly. That's my gut, right? I mean, I'm telling you, somebody reported it and it was removed on one of the platforms on our account. So I firsthand saw it. So I'm I'm calling verified Kirby's in the movie. That to me seals the deal. But who knows? But that's my
Yeah.
gut.
No, I
But
mean 100%. I mean, if they're pulling people's posts down, it's either there's something in the picture that they don't want people seeing, or they're being petty. And I guess
yeah,
I wouldn't put it past a big studio to be petty, but I don't think that they pay their social media people enough to be petty.
no, I feel like I mean, with all the fakes and things that Photoshops, I wouldn't think unless it was truly substantial leak. And here's what I'm thinking is we don't know where this leak came from. So if
Yeah.
it's an internal leak and they caught it and they found out that was happening, so that led them to the trail of trying to clean stuff. I don't know. But again, back to the teaser that came out, I really have the gut feeling that it is a multiple killers, because that one moment in that scene, all those Ghostfaces kind of leaned forward and looked the same way, and the time it seemed very like they were choreographed, right? Like they were in sync. So
Right.
I'm really thinking that's what we got. We got the multiple killers. I think we're gonna have more than two. I think it's gonna be several. And I don't know. Hopefully the story is strong. I do. I hold very, very strong to the hope that Nev Campbell is somehow going to part. They've been swerving us. I don't know because I get my hopes up all the time for stuff like that, and when it doesn't happen, I'm like, So I don't know. It could be legit. Every Scream movie that's come out since, I always hope Matthew Lillard's back a part of it. So I hope he is. But anyway, looks fun. I cannot wait to see that movie. I love the Scream franchise. Again, oh yep, here it is. I have it right in my notes. It was distributed by Paramount, so it was Paramount, not Universal. It was Paramount that hit us. And again, that movie is being released March 10th, 2023. So we can count down the days. And some other news. We have another convention we're going to talk about here. It's called the Valentine's. I think I'm going to pronounce that correctly. I know it's a play off Valentine's. I'm assuming. I'm assuming 2023. It's in January 13th, but I would assume, I don't know. It's a month away from Valentine's. But anyway, it's in the Central Florida Fairgrounds. It has cosplay, movies, food, vendors, and mania awaits you at the celebration of all things dark and twisted. Join us for a cosplay date night, which includes a double feature of some of Hollywood's most twisted villains. That's just a small convention. It's got free admission, $10 parking, and the double feature is Scream in The Shining. So, hey, it sounds like fun. Some toys and merch that are coming out. Knuckleheads have a pre-order for Art the Clown. It starts at It's at $39.99. It's at knuckleheadstoys.com. That's Knuckleheads with a Z. It's a 6-inch figure. It's got articulation. It's got a knife. It's in a custom box. My only thing is, I've noticed this a long time. I think this has been up for pre-order for quite a while. So I'm not sure what the delay is and why what's holding up the production. Knuckleheads has put out a lot of figures. So I'm not sure what the holdup is on this. But it's still up for pre-order, but I'm pretty sure it's been up for pre-order for a few months at least now. But anyway, in some other news, Universal Monsters retro glow-in-the-dark figures are out there. I think they're bendy figures. It's a set of 3. It's the Mummy, Frankenstein's monster, and the Wolfman. Those have been out for a little bit, but they're very cool figures. But you can get them as a set of 3 at BigBadToyStore.com for $65.99. You know me. I love the Universal Monsters, so I'm going to plug all that merchandise. Some birthdays coming up. December 17th, Mila Jovovich. Ike, one of your favorites there from the Resident Evil franchise. She's got a birthday coming up. I like Mila from the Fifth Element. That movie is spectacular. I love that movie so much. And then on December 21st, Kiefer Sutherland, from the Lost Boys and Flatliners and 24, and well, he's done all kinds of stuff, but he'll always be known for Lost Boys to me. He has a birthday. An anniversary release date of a movie on December 19th, 1971. A Clockwork Orange was released based on the Anthony Bourdain book starring Malcolm McDowell. It is considered a horror sci-fi rated X on its initial release. Pretty good movie. I've not seen that in many, many, many years. This might inspire me to do a rewatch on it pretty soon.
I don't think I've ever seen it, actually.
Well, so you need to. It's a fun movie. Then on December 20th, 1996, the first Scream was released, starring Nev Campbell and Courtney Cox, looping it back to Scream, a classic movie, great movie, such a good film. I enjoyed the whole series, but man, that first was just absolutely great. There's so many lines in that that final act where the killers are revealed and they're stabbing each other and doing all that in the kitchen. So many Matthew Lillard lines there that I repeat all the time, just all the time. That with that, I'm feeling woozy, man, and stuff like that. You got me deep. And he's like, "Are you going to call my parents?" and all that. They're going to be pissed.
My mom's going to be so mad.
It's just, so many great lines in that. Just alone, that scene that I love. And then in memory, just to remember that on December 21st, 2009, Brittany Murphy died from the movie Something Wicked, Prophecy 2, many other movies. So we'll remember her dying in 2009. All right, let's move on to some upcoming releases for the upcoming week. On December 16th, at select theaters and video on demand is Mind Cage with John Malkovich and Martin Lawrence. It's distributed by Lionsgate. When a copycat strikes, 2 detectives ask a top serial killer for help. That's always bad news when the cops go to the bad guy for help, and you get that team up. So, On December 16, 2022, in select theaters, and then on Shudder, which is also available on AMC Plus, is The Apology. It is 20 years after the disappearance of her daughter. A recovering alcoholic is preparing to host her family's Christmas celebration when her estranged ex-brother-in-law arrives unannounced, bearing nostalgic gifts and a heavy secret. Starring Anna Gunn and Janine Garofalo. I always struggle over names, man. I swear, because like my problem is, it's like I know how to say them and I've heard them a million times, but then when you go to pronounce them and you're looking at notes, it's like you overthink. You really just gets all in my head. That will be released by RLJE Films. And then on a note, if you're looking for something Christmas horror to watch, you can try Better Watch Out. Released in 2016, starring Levi Miller and Virginia Madsen. Ashley travels to the suburban home of the Lerners to babysit their 12-year-old son Luke during the holidays. She must soon defend herself and the young boy when unwelcome intruders announce their arrival. So we like to throw some Christmas horror out there that you might want to watch. When we come back, one of our films that we're going to review is a Christmas horror movie, because when we come back, we're going to review Christmas, Bloody Christmas, and Skinamarink. So hang in there.
Remember, in the course of discussing movies, the host will spoil plots. You've been warned.
All right, we're back. Let's dive into our reviews. Ike, let's start with Skinamarink. Again, this movie is coming out in theaters on January 13th, 2023, and then later on in that year, it'll come out on Shudder. It debuted at some festivals and everything else, and an at-home festival viewing platform inadvertently was exploited and allowed this movie to be pirated. So it's been out there. People have been talking, and it kind of pissed me off. So when we got, they reached out about us getting a screener and reviewing it. I wanted to do it, right? I mean, I want to do it anyway, right? I want to watch the movie and review it. But then it's like, I want to go ahead and do it because I want to help kind of support the movie, plug the movie, and kind of, hopefully build up some interest in it. The movie is written and directed by Kyle Edward Ball. It's starring Jaime Hill, Lucas Paul, and Ross Paul. It's distributed by Bayview Entertainment. The movie says when two children wake up in the middle of the night to find their father is missing and all the windows and doors in their home has vanished. I don't want to again, this movie's not officially out, right? So I don't want us to give away really any spoilers on this. So when we review and talk about it, let's talk more our feelings and our mood and the mood of the movie and things like that.
Yeah.
So why don't you start and dive in and your takeaways from watching Skinamarink?
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to kind of preface my review by saying that first and foremost, I did like the movie. However, I want to wait to give my official review until I've seen it in theaters, and I'm going to explain why here in just a minute. So I watched the movie. I watched it on a small screen because I have it on when I'm doing other things. And in this case, I didn't have my full undivided attention on the movie. Obviously, I'm pretty good at multitasking, so I was able to watch the movie and get a good grasp of what we were watching. But here's the deal: this movie relies a lot on subtlety. It relies a lot on audio, and I would even go as far to say as very, very small visual cues. And here's the deal. The movie was great. It seemed very experimental in the best way, because the movie wasn't your typical type of like movie. I would almost put this in like a paranormal genre. It wasn't your typical paranormal-esque movie. It definitely had the paranormal like features and tropes, but I definitely feel like it really played heavily on this concept of the unknown. As you're watching the movie, there's a lot of stuff that happens off camera that you don't really know what happened, right? A lot of the stuff that you're seeing on camera is almost like the residuals of what's happened before. And it plays heavily on also innocence. It plays heavily on the innocence of a child, on the innocence of cartoons, on the innocence of just not understanding. And I feel like that's what almost makes this movie sad in a way, because it almost feels like this movie is about some kind of paranormal entity torturing a child. And it brings a very large, I would say, feeling of dread to you as you watch this movie, because you're basically sitting here and watching this helpless and defenseless child be tortured essentially. And it's horrifying, but it was good in a way. And I don't know, it made me feel a whole lot of things. And I won't give specifics, but I want to watch it in theaters because I feel like theaters is going to give it the most authentic and genuine experience because the theater is your undivided attention. It has the loudest and most probably the best quality sound that you're going to get, and I think that's what this movie needs, in my opinion.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Um, the odd thing about this movie is, straight up, honestly, if you take it at face value, it's not the kind of movie that anybody that knows me would think I would like.
Right.
But I actually enjoyed it primarily because this movie disturbed me, and
Yep.
it disturbed me without being what you would call graphic or gory or anything like that. This movie was unsettling, and I I the I talk a lot about the old classic monster movies, and one of the things I always, when I describe them, I always say how beautiful they are and how well made they are. This film, the way it was made, to me, was beautiful and
Mhm.
very, very greatly that the angles. I mean, we don't see the kids much beyond pretty much their feet and stuff until late in the movie, if I'm remembering right.
Yep.
And it's just the angles. It had a graininess to it. The shadows, and it was, and the fact that they did not. It's, you watch a movie like this that does not have music or a score or anything like that, and you start to notice that the silent parts, and the way the kids, there was a whisper where they had to have the subtitles and just
Yeah.
all these things, and it literally, it was unnerving, and it was like I sat there staring at this thinking, someone fucking help these kids,
Yeah.
because I was so under. And the thing is, to be honest, when I got to that point when I fully didn't even understand what was happening. It's like you don't really even know what the hell's going on. When I read about what this movie was, I thought it would build a little bit, right? It didn't build. It was right from the start. They were there. They were in it. And it was, man, it was creepy. These kids continually thinking that their dad was just in the bedroom or
Yeah.
in the rooms and calling out to him, and they would hear noises, and it was things happening that as an adult would panic me, right? It would send me into a defensive fit to prepare for it, like a noise or whatever it may be. But these kids, it was toying with that innocence, like you said,
Yeah.
where it's not that they even necessarily, they were clearly at times frightened, but it was more a, what is that? And there was times when things happened and they weren't freaking out. They would ask, how are you doing that? And it was unsettling. And I have to say, my hats are off. It is
Yeah.
not the typical kind of movie that I like. It's if not the kind of movie that I go to, but this movie was so effective. And we have talked about it, and you've mentioned it many times through the course of reviews and talking, that horror doesn't have to be graphic or gory, right? It has to play with your emotions and make you feel something, unsettled, a sense of suspense, whatever it may be. And man, shoo, this movie did it in droves.
Yeah. No, you kind of even said it, but it was like everything that happened in this movie, if it happened to me, like you said, fight or flight immediately. But I think the thing that disturbed me to my core was these kids, they were not reacting how they needed to react. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Obviously there's danger, but they don't know. And it's that
Nope.
innocence. And that's what disturbed me to my core because it's like watching a car speeding towards a cliff and not being able to warn the person who's driving that car that they're about to go over the
Yeah.
cliff because you know that something bad is going to happen. Something bad always happens in these movies. You can feel it building, and it's just like you can't help but watch and just it's like because like I mean I'm gonna be straight up honest. I almost just want to give this movie a 5 out of 5 as it is, right? But and I want to wait until I watch it in the theaters to like officially give it that because like I just feel like the theaters is going to give it such a better experience. But just as it is, this movie is like it checks off all of the boxes of a fucked up movie, and it just oh my god, it it puts a like a lump in your chest almost. It's like almost hard to breathe while you're watching the movie. It's hard to explain.
Well, it is, and part of this is this movie hits on all my fears, right?
Yeah.
I don't like feeling closed in, right? I'm number one, I'm claustrophobic, but and when people think of a claustrophobia, they just think the small tight places, and that is obviously a very big part. But there's also that feeling of just being trapped. Period.
Right.
That concept of being in something with no way to escape, no way to get out, just it makes me want to cry. It's like I can't fathom that thought. And like we said, if it were me in that position, I'd be picking up the first thing I could do and try to bash through the wall just to get at to create an opening.
Yeah.
Even if I don't necessarily need or want to get out at that particular moment, I want to make sure that option's there. And I don't like that. But these kids, because they were so young and so innocent and what have you, it was it was to them, it was like, well, they assumed, well, there's a reason, right? There's got to be something. This is that this is happening, that my dad is in bed, or he's not here, or whatever it may be. And they went through their routines the best they could, right? They were eating cereal and watching their cartoons and just doing the best they could, because they didn't have any point of reference to have that fear.
Yeah.
They didn't have the life experience yet to understand the situation, or to have this extraordinary fear of the unknown of the situation even. I mean, when you're that age and that young, everything's unknown, right? There's so much unknown. And man, it was disturbing. And again, the way they filmed it and the angles they used, because they didn't show you too much in
Right.
any point. There was very selective shots, very limited shots, and the lighting and the mood. And again, it had that old film feel, that graininess almost to it. And to me, the visually, it felt like found footage, like a found
Yeah.
footage type film. But it clearly was, there clearly wasn't a camera around in this house. It's not what it was, but it had that feeling, right? Like you're observing something you shouldn't,
Yeah.
or weren't meant to observe. And again, I mean, there's that whole sense, I think, when you're an adult, that plays into that fight or flight thing, of not only that, but you get so unnerved, you want to defend those kids, right? You want to save those kids and do something. And it's like, it was unsettling. And I enjoyed it much more than I thought. I really did. As it was going and it started, I thought, no, I'm not sure I'm going to like this, because I thought the way it's going, I'm like, oh, this is not typically my cup of tea kind of movie. But they did it so well, and it was, they turned me, they hooked me. And I think this will definitely be a movie that I'll rewatch. It was a movie that my wife was going to watch it with me, and she didn't get to. And I told her, I said, I don't think you'll like it, because she didn't like these kind of movies. But there's a lot of that of, I don't know if she should watch it, because I think it'll freak the shit out of her. and I mean, this is the kind of movie, to me, it might inspire a bad dream.
Right.
It's freaky, freaky weird. And they did such a good job of tapping into that child in your past, to make you to feel the fear and everything. So Ike, so you don't want to give it a rating right now until you go see it on theater. Is that what you're saying?
Like, I do and I don't, because it's like, if
Well,
I
here,
had. Go
let's
ahead.
do this. Let's rate it. We'll rate it when it comes out in theaters. If one or both of us go see it, we'll reserve the right to amend our rating if need be. If we want to update it and change it anyway, at that time, we'll do that. What do you say?
That sounds like a plan to me.
Okay. So, well, I'm not gonna go as far as 5, but I'm giving it 4. I've definitely given it 4, and I was tempted to go 4.5. And you know what? I am. I'm going 4.5 on it. There is something about this movie. I'm telling you, I don't know. This movie's not for everybody. It's really not. So, this movie, to me, is going to be very divisive, because I
Yeah.
think some people are going to hate it and pan it and want to say, oh, it's a 0. It's a horrible movie. There's nothing to it. There's no action. There's no this. There's no that. It's because it is a slow movie. That's part of the element. That's intentional. That's not bad of anything in this production of this movie. That's the way this movie's meant to be. It is meant to build and build and build and build until you just cannot take it anymore. It's meant to be that way. And so this movie's going to be very divisive. I think it really is. I think some people are going to love it. Some people are going to hate it. I don't think there's going to be a lot of middle ground on this movie. But I'm, you know what? I'm going to go for it. I'm going to be bold, and I'm going 4.5 screams on this movie.
I was thinking the same thing. 4.5 screams out of 5. I have a feeling that when I see it in theaters, it's going to be a 5. I just have a feeling.
I think so too, because I think the audio side of it will give it a lot more in a theater, and sitting in that dark room and seeing it, on the larger screen where you're going to pick up even more details. This movie feels. I mean, it was great watching it at home. Don't get me wrong, but it feels like it was made for the big screen. And so yeah, it's one of these odd things of, I will go see a movie after I've seen it at home just to support it. This is a movie that I want to go see again after seeing it at home, just because I want to see it in that new element. So
right.
So Kyle Edward Ball, hats off, buddy. You did great. So 4.5 screams from us. That chilled me to my core, and I'm super afraid to go to sleep tonight after watching that movie today. It's like the dude crawled in my head and unearthed my fears. And well played. So now let's lighten the mood a little bit, and let's get into something that's that it was enjoyable as well, and maybe a little more lighthearted, a little more fun. Let's talk Christmas Bloody Christmas that just came out. It was directed and produced by Joe Begos, starring Riley Dandy and Sam Dulwich. It is a Christmas Eve, and Tori just wants to get drunk and party, but when a robotic Santa Claus at a nearby toy store goes haywire and begins a rampant killing spree through her small town, she's forced into a battle for survival. This movie is on Shudder, which of course is also part of the AMC Plus package if you have that. Just a note, in doing the research, this film has 487 uses of the F-bomb. For you that don't know, that's the word fuck. And that is an average of 5.6 per minute. And
fuck yeah.
That's funny because, I knew they were foul mouthed and whatever else, but I didn't realize how often. And maybe that's because, man, I have a bad tendency of dropping it myself in language, in speech, and don't even realize it. Here, I'll start with this one. Since you started last one, but I have to say, I fucking love this movie. I thought this movie was so damn much fun. Even funner than I thought. When I read the description, I thought, "Oh, this sounds great, right? This sounds fun." This movie to me was it was easy to watch. It was and I was fearful there for a while because it felt like they were building a lot right before they got to the Santa part, but it didn't feel like it was drug out too much for me. I swear to God, those two, Tori and I can't remember the guy's name that she worked with, that they kind of crushed on each other and end up kind of having their little thing. Man, if you didn't know better, you would think that is exactly how those two people are, how they are in real life, because they were just, they were out, they were single, they were, at that, 20 somethings, whatever, it was Christmas Eve, they were out, drinking, just because, they didn't have, significant others, they didn't have a lot of family, it didn't seem, so they were just like, oh, we're just gonna have fun, right? And they talked a lot of music, and I like that, and hell, to me, they were very relatable characters. And I swear, I think they tapped into themselves a lot in that. I feel like they put a lot of themselves, the actors put a lot of themselves into that characters because it seemed very natural to me. And everybody in the movie was like that. Nobody seemed like real faked or forced. It really felt like a slice of life. And I like the fact that there's this, using this army technology to develop these, anamorphic or whatever Santa, whatever you want to call it, not anamorphic, may not be the right word. These Santas that, can take the place of your typical mall Santas, and they go haywire. And the only thing I can say is at the end, I felt like it drugged just a little bit with her, finally destroying it or whatever you might say, getting away from it. I feel like maybe they went to the well one or too many times with that. Oh, it's back. But but it was a pretty gruesome movie. There were some great kills in it. Um, if I remember right, I mean, she was the only survivor, right?
Yeah, I think she was the only one left at that at the end of all that.
Yeah, of the major characters. Again, we're spoiling this one all the heck because it's out there on Shudder, so everybody should have already watched it. If you're anybody, should have already watched it. But I liked it. I thought it was fun. I thought it was a very good Christmas slasher type movie. Again, we've talked about how Christmas horror movies are tough, and I thought this was kind of a fresh take, kind of an original angle to come at it. It wasn't your typical serial killer dressed as Santa. It was the robotic thing. It was kind of humorous. Um, and I thought it was fun, and so I enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun watch. I will probably rewatch it in future Christmases. So what do you think of Christmas Bloody Christmas?
No, yeah, absolutely. I think first and foremost, I would want to say that I agree with you. The movie felt very organic and natural. A lot of the conversations and a lot of the in-between stuff felt really organic and natural. I mean, like you said, the characters just kind of felt like they were playing themselves. And they had, I would say, pretty realistic reactions to when they. I remember there was a scene where they are downstairs and they hear something going on next door, and the lady looks to the window and sees like the kid get axed and the
Yeah,
next door neighbor, and like her reaction was completely valid and completely proportionate to what happened. She wasn't like, oh, I'm just imagining things. No, she was like, we need to get the fuck out of here right now. Which, one of the things I hate about horror movies is they sometimes play too much into those tropes about like, oh, everything's fine. But this one they didn't do that at all. Like it was like, shit is getting real right now, and let's get out of here. Um, and I think that the addition of the robot Santa, it basically, to me, it, like you said, was a fresh take. It wasn't some guy who was traumatized by a murderous man dressed as Santa. It wasn't like some weird like.
yeah, some supernatural Krampus
Right.
being or yeah,
Right, it was just a robot. It was a robot that somebody made. They honestly, it reminded me of toy soldiers where they put those
yeah,
microchips in those, or small soldiers, I'm sorry, where they
yeah.
put those like military grade microchips in toys and the toys started acting up. It kind of reminded me of that, but like on steroids. And yeah, it removed that human element from the murdering, so you didn't have to like pander to like the, oh, what's within human means, because typically when you have a human serial killer, either you have to go the, this person is supernaturally powerful and like can do anything, or you have to do the, they're limited to what their human body can do. This removes all of that because it's a freaking robot. The robot can do whatever the hell it wants.
Hmm.
um but no, yeah, absolutely gruesome kills, funny lines, great on-screen chemistry between all the characters. The relationships and everything else seemed real for the amount of time that you watched it. And yeah, absolutely, if you haven't seen it, I would say watch it. It is a fun watch. It's not going to win any awards, obviously, but as far as Christmas horror movies go, it was a solid movie.
Yeah, and they did one thing that I very much like. That is an issue I have with lots of TV shows and movies and everything else. They when like what you said, when they saw the neighbor boy getting killed or whatever else, they freaked out and they called the police. Right when the police caught up and everything else, and eventually what ended up happening is they didn't say, "Oh, what's going on?" They thought, "What the hell did you do?" Right? They
Yep.
suspected her, and she was talking about saying like, "You're crazy." So many times I watch things and I'm like, if that situation really happened, they would be looking at that person as the number one suspect in that happening. And that's what they did in this, right? And they're like, they kind of did this kind of the weird take on the good cop, bad cop thing, right? The one cop was all interface. You did this. What the hell? And the other cop's like, well, hold on now. Let's hear her story. You want to go clean up? Trying to get her to talk a little bit. But I think they both suspected that she was the one that did this
Yeah.
because who's going to believe a robotic Santa goes crazy and starts killing people? You're going to believe, nah, this drunk girl who's probably on something killed people and is now freaking out. And we're going to figure out, try to get her to confess. That's what happened. And
Yep.
that's what would happen in real life. No one's going to believe that other story. And so I kudos to them for not falling into that trap of the naive policeman that just believes your story, because you see that so many times. And I hate that. And again, I talk about it all the time. I'm a huge fan of Supernatural, and I hate that in that show all the time. So they go to the police or whatever else, and they're like, they are. You see something right, and someone's wife gets killed or whatever because of some creature, and the husband finds them. And like, you know what? In real life, that husband's getting arrested and put in prison because they're going to suspect he killed his wife, and that's what it is. But anyway, I got on a sidetrack there. But yeah, again, it was so fun. I realized they were cussing a lot. Didn't realize that near 500 times they said the F bomb. That might be more. That might be more a reflection of me and my personality than anything. But
True.
but again,
True.
that yeah, well, yeah. But I mean, that's life, though, right? When you're a 20-something who has in their situations where they don't have all the responsibilities that yet they're at that point, and they have their job, they're doing okay, but they're just having fun, right? They just want to listen to music and drink and whatever. That's how they talk, right? I mean, but it's just like they were completely busting each other's balls and with things, and that's what people do. That's what friends do. That's what coworkers to a certain extent do. And so it felt so natural, and it was fun, right? I mean, she was tough as hell, but it was kind of believable, right? She didn't do anything extraordinary. I mean, her freaking hand was mauled or whatever that one point, and or whatever it was that happened to it, and every way that she stopped him was, she had to try to outthink and come up with something, turning the sprinklers on or whatever it might be.
Right.
It's not, she wasn't overpowering this robot or doing anything, that you wouldn't believe. Um, but yeah, again, hats off. It was a fun movie, highly recommended. And I'm gonna say, man, I hate rating a movie like this because I enjoyed it so much. My tendency is to try to overrate it. So I have to be realistic in the scale and the scope of everything, right? And all the movies we've talked about, try to think on where to put it. Because, my initial reaction is, oh, this was so fun. I want to give it 4, just give it 4. And then I'm like, but some of the movies we've talked about, and if we're going to, take, a little keener eye to it, maybe that's a little bit. So I'm going to give Christmas Bloody Christmas. I think I'm going to stick and give it a 3.5 screams out of 5. And that is in no way a knock because I could very easily be persuaded to go 4 on it in the ratings.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree. 3.5 screams. I was gonna go 3, but like you said, you think about the scope of this. 3 is like your middle of the line. I liked it. I didn't necessarily love it, but it wasn't a bad movie. That's what a 3 is. But to me, this was better than a 3. Was it a 4? Not quite. When I think of a 4, I think of a movie that's going above and beyond in a lot of ways. And this movie did go above and beyond, but it wasn't so extraordinary that I'm going to give it a 4. But I will say a solid 3.5 out of 5.
I agree. I mean, it's not breaking any new ground, but it's also not, it's not, running in place so much that it's just that, doing the same thing that every other movie's done. But yeah, I had to go higher than a 3 because again, this is a movie that I can almost guarantee you I will rewatch at some point, probably yearly. I will probably rewatch it. So I can't just go 3. I had to go 3.5. So again, Shudder, man, Shudder's putting out some good stuff. And this is yet another movie that they're putting out. Again, I know Shudder right now. It's not necessarily Shudder's fault per se because they're part of that whole AMC family of things. But there's been a huge flux of layoffs. That's
Yeah.
in AMC that in their streaming. The company is saying they have overestimated the streaming revenue and how much it will counter the non-cable, the cable stuff, the loss of cable customers and things like that. So they laid off a bunch of people, and it's affected and impacted Shudder. It's going to that, and I'm like, I understand that layoffs are a part of business, and I get that. Man, this is number one. This is a horrible time to be telling people you're laid off. I'm like, God, you couldn't have waited another month. Drug it on one more month and waited till after the holiday. But I get it. That's why I couldn't be in that position, I guess. But so that sours my view of the whole thing. But Shudder is putting out some good content right now, and they've had a very good year with their content. And Christmas Bloody Christmas is it's another hit for me. Another good movie. I'm very pleased. All right, so that's our Skinamarink and our Christmas Bloody Christmas, 2 movies that we very much liked. and highly recommend. Again, go see Skinamarink when it comes out in theaters in 2023. Let's make it this surprise hit of the spring, or excuse me, I guess it's not spring, it's in January. But let's make it a surprise hit, right? Let's just push it to the moon
Hell yeah.
to offset this the issue it had with the party, because that sucks. I don't want something like that to ruin this movie before it even had a chance to show what it could do, and it's a good movie. So Ike, before we close out and get out of here, you got anything, any last minute things you want to say?
If you pirate movies from small companies, your mom's a hoe.
Absolutely. And if you're pirating it for your mom, that's a hoe. Man, it just makes you the worst person. So
That's right.
So next week we are going to definitely review Krampus from 2015. Our intentions were also to review The Mean One, which is just coming out. However, I don't think we're going to be able to do that, because when they initially announced the movie, it was supposed to be out on streaming platforms. Well, they have since secured a theatrical release with Regal Theaters, and so it has delayed the streaming release, because there's been no further word on that right now. So it won't be available on streaming. And I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. At least maybe one of us could go see it in the theaters, and we can still do some form of review. Well, neither one of us have a Regal Theater showing this movie anywhere close to us. We have looked and looked and looked, and it's just not possible. It's just absolutely not possible for us to see this movie. Now, I did put in a little bit ago for a screener link to review the movie. I do know since they have closed it on the site and said they're no longer sending those. They didn't say that when I submitted, so I don't know whether they're going to give any more for those last minute people or not. So it does not look at this time like we will be able to yet review The Mean One, unless a Christmas miracle comes through and we get that screener link. And if we do that, we'll have a review. But otherwise, next week will just be Krampus from 2015.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is one of the movies you wanted on the bill, Ike. So
I sure did.
I'm expecting you. It's your time to shine. You're getting called up to the majors here. This is your movie. But until then, hopefully everybody's having a good holiday season and enjoying time and different activities, and hopefully everybody can have a little time off around these holidays to rest and recharge before we barrel into 2023. But thank you for listening. Make sure you subscribe and follow us on social media. And until next episode, wherever you go and whatever you do, be good, be safe, and have many pleasant nightmares.